Well, this is our first time doing this, and hopefully it goes pretty well. It goes to kind of like reconnect with everybody, see some familiar faces. This has become the norm of how we've communicated in these times, and I'm still learning, obviously, how to do that, how to change my name and do the backgrounds and everything. It's pretty chaotic right now, as to say the least, and but the one thing that is constant with this group, at least, we all have a connection to Oregon State rowing. And I think that's a positive thing that we can kind of move towards in this time of chaos. And we want to kind of laugh a little bit, hopefully, and share some stories. We're going to connect with some of the current athletes, with some of the alums are going to talk a little bit too. If you have any questions, you can just add them into the chat, anything that comes up. Yeah, and I don't know, Kate, you want to add a little bit more to that?
Yeah, so the loose format of this is Gabe and I are going to go back and forth and give some highlights. We come up with some 4 areas that we think people might want to hear about. We'll bounce off each other back and forth, and then we'll turn it over to we'll have an interview between our current athlete and an alum for both squads. And then we'll take your questions that we haven't answered after that. So one of the first questions that we thought you might be interested in hearing, and this is from the coach's perspective, what was the hardest part about the abrupt end to spring racing? And, what do we as coaches miss experiencing this spring? So Gabe, what was your first point on that one?
Well, you think about, it feels like years ago that it was basically March 12th, I think, was our last day. That feels like it was a different time period. It doesn't feel like it's just like less than 3 months ago. And that day was extremely hard. I'd actually have to say, in coaching, it was probably the hardest day of all of the time that I've ever done this. And to kind of get through that, of like, you're going full steam and then it stops at a brick wall, was probably the toughest thing.
Mm-hmm.
But then you start to think about, like, why? I mean, what made it so sad in that moment? And the biggest thing that I am missing is a routine. Mm-hmm. And the sense of, like, this is what my day's going to go towards, and this is how we're going to do it. And this is the training plan, and these are the races that we're going to go. That's honestly the biggest thing that I'm missing. And now I'm feeling a little bit lost. I don't know about how you feel, Kate.
Yeah. I think one of the hardest things about that moment was the immediate scramble to help them decide where they needed to go, if they needed to get out of town, be with their family. And we didn't really have clear and firm direction from leadership. And I think that's a pattern at many levels. OSU was working to have a measured response, but ultimately I felt compelled to empower each woman to think for herself and with the advice of her family to make a mature decision on whether to get home or not. So that immediate scramble was unsettling. What about you? What was another thing that was hard for you, or what do you miss, Gabe?
Everybody knows the whole stories of the seniors, that they've gone 4 years, even more, some 5th years, that are this is their end, and this is what they're working towards, and to see it end like that was tough. But then also the freshmen, you really kind of think about, we bring them in and you talk a big game about, this is going to be great, we're going to race all these times, it's going to be all these experiences, and then there's none of that.
Right.
The freshmen it still is out there for them, that they still do, I hope, kind of look forward to feeling those things, but it's kind of hard to explain. It's going to be awesome, and then it didn't happen.
Right. Yeah. And I think, trying to navigate all of that change, one of the hard things was not being able to see them in person every day to get a sense of really how they're processing that. FaceTime and Zoom, it's helped stay connected, but it's not the same feeling. I know I rely on that energy from them kind of really push past. And most people are conditioned to say, I'm fine, I'm safe. They feel like they have to say the right thing. And the beauty of being in person, I really miss that, to be able to push that conversation further and to help them process that loss, and to support them. What was something else that was hard about the spring?
The travel and
was mine too.
Because you get to see people wherever you're going to probably go. And honestly, a lot of my family is out east, and to go to the IRA, which we forgot to mention, like both the NCAA and the IRA finals would be today. And
right.
I looked at the weather at West Windsor today, and it was idyllic, like 7 degrees and relatively calm, which at Mercer, for the last 2 times that we've been there, they've had to kind of postpone or cancel some of the finals, which it was like, of all Murphy's Law, if it's not going to happen, it's going to be the best day ever. But, just even you get the opportunity to go to the different places, and you don't have those moments of that, remember in that year, that thing happened, better or worse.
Right.
This year's just all going to be, we didn't race. That's it. And it's huge. It's a big thing, but it's like, that's what happened that year. And it's kind of, the story is going to dwell on that.
Well, I put that down too, like traveling with the team, because it's all that time you have together beyond the race course. As you guys remember, the bus rides, the flights, the downtime in the hotels. We were, as coaches, got to know them in a different way in through that travel, and they get to see each other and have that connection. I agree. Having that time with them, back-to-back weekends was a hard loss. What else for you, Gabe?
We both had an opportunity to race. Some teams completely got nothing. We got one go down the course, and it was one of those, it's like glimpses of pretty good. And, it's like, I think even we were going to be able to build through that throughout the season, like, because we're going to even add more guys in after our first race. And you guys, man, I think honestly one of the biggest moments of the year was that 4 beating, what is it? Stanford was number 2 or 3 at the time.
I know.
And that was like, I don't think too many people would have expected that. And it's like, well, what could have been? You'll never know.
I think like that, witnessing them put all their hard work on the race course, right? Like it's the final chapter of all those months of buildup where, the athletes have to buy in and trust our training plan for months and months and months. And the race season is what validates that effort. Yeah, for me too, that's something that, we got a taste of that. And you're right, our first trip, against Stanford, it was really exciting to see the 4 beat them. And, that was, we're holding on to that moment. And, that as proof that we're headed in a good direction here. You have one more, Gabe, on this one? One more point on this one?
I just like that. I miss the small things. And this specifically, like being outside. I know that, like, I've been not outside 90% of my day now, and that just doesn't make me feel all that great. And it's getting a little bit better, but just being outside and like on the water, even in the pouring rain, I actually like it. It sounds weird, but I really, really like even the bad days. And I like it. We were going to shift our practices to the mornings for this spring, which initially is a huge drag. But then over the course of this spring, you usually feel better and better and more awake and more like ready to go and challenge your day. I actually miss that. I miss that aspect of kind of ramping up and the weather is always getting better and better over the spring, which, I just miss that.
Yeah. The last thing for me on this question, I think along the lines of the little things, I think the whole process of getting ready to compete, of course, all the practices, on the limit leading up to it, but I think really what like makes my heart turn is those precious moments right before they get ready to race, right before and after. you know, the boat meetings, the hands in, and the go beeves, and the privilege and the honor of walking the boat to the water and bringing them their oars, and, you know, wishing them fast and hard racing, and then the privilege of being able to catch them on shore, no matter how it went, you know, and you walk them up from the race course and you debrief, and I miss those privileged few moments.
Yeah,
So,
like those as a coach, it's pretty intense in those, the emotions in those little moments are pretty high. Like, you're really nervous and really antsy when they're launching, and you're just like, what's going to happen? And then they come down the course, and it's a complete different emotion of like, yes, or like, ah. And then they come in, and you have to be level no matter where it is. Like, yes, good, but, or not. You got to be the person that can lead them out. And yeah, those are, as a coach, those are the kind of things that you live for, honestly.
right.
That's the reason why you do it, is to see the racing and to see the stuff that's happening, all of that. The work is, that's why I think that it is so emotional. Like, the work is so pinpointed in that moment. And yeah, you get to have that.
Yeah.
So the next kind of
Okay.
thing,
Yeah. The next question. Yeah.
what
Sorry.
did we learn about the team
Since then, right?
Yeah.
Well, I will say, so what have we as coaches learned about our team since the shutdown? I've learned that our team are great racers. I mean that metaphorically. They've taken the skills that we teach every day. We use the race course as the tool, but they've stretched that to meet the current adversity. They've responded extremely well to this massive curveball. They are good decision makers. They looked for the way to get right back to work. They, at no point they took themselves off the hook. Like, and that's racing, man. You never know what's going to come down the course, and they had to figure out, I got to adapt and I got to step up, you know, and that's all about being responsive. And so I've learned that our team are great racers through this. What about you, Gabe?
One thing that we did in January as a team is we did a values exercise, which everybody kind of lays out cards and then kind of picks their top values. And then you get your top 6 values. And then we did that as a team, a little bit of debate back and forth of what they should be and stuff. But the top one was passion, which that kind of drives everything. But beneath it, the second one was resilience. So that like, okay, it's almost like you said that you were like this. So are you really resilient in these moments? This is the time when you have to be probably as resilient as you ever could be, because this is so abnormal. And if you're not being able to adapt, you know, you're going to fall.
Right.
Yeah. And so we started out like, okay, maybe like, can we set up this guy in erg and this guy's in this guy's garage and all that, all these little kind of, what are you going to do? You have to just make do with what you have. Can I do jumpies? Do I have a jump rope to do these things? And these guys, we've made challenges every week to kind of motivate them in any way. And there's actually a freshman was in charge of doing these. And I think that he's done a really good job at coming up with these different challenges. And that at least gives the guys something to do through the week to work towards. It can be working out or not working out.
Right. Yeah, that was one of my points too. I think I've learned that they're really creative. So they found all different kinds of ways to connect. They've done a trivia. Katie Hum, one of our alum, organized that for them. They've done other kinds of games. They've done shared movie nights. They've been doing cooking challenges. You know, they've been doing Zoom workouts. We have every Wednesday has been the athlete choice workout, and then they set up a Zoom and they watch each other erg. However exciting or not exciting that is.
One thing that I want to publicize that of what you guys have been doing with the meals. I think that's really cool. Like, can you describe what you guys have been doing?
So we have about 18 women who are in Corvallis, and we recognize that they didn't have the support of their families. And some of them are internationals, and they made the decision to tough it out here. So we, every Friday, we've been putting together a healthy recipe, buying groceries, and delivering them to them so that they're And then they've been posting pictures of the recipe. And so that's been kind of a fun, something creative for them to do, but it's also allowed us to parade around town with our big truck and see them from 6 feet away and offer a little bit of support.
They're all vegan recipes.
I know.
Hey, no,
well, I'm trying to include some, fresh ingredients. I figure not everyone's buying spinach, so that was in there.
Well, I think that's really cool. Like, you got to think about, what are you going to learn from all of this? Like, learn some new recipes, learn how to cook vegan, learn how to have this nutrition stuff. Like, that's real world things. Like, that's not rowing really. It's really kind of cool that you guys have been doing that. And you have to budget or like, I'm going to go to the grocery store once in the next 2 weeks. What is that going to mean for my food? And like, hey man, these guys got to figure that out and how to do that. Also, like, personally, what I almost enjoy, and I say almost, like, are these things, are these connections that we really wouldn't have done and without being, in these times. Like, I've been chatting with a coaches group every week and chatting with some other guys that I haven't seen in years. And I honestly think that's a huge positive. And it's almost like, well, why did it take this to do that?
Right. Yeah. That's just something else that I've learned about our team is, like, through these class meetings over Zoom, or we've been talking about team culture and what does that look like right now. And I've been learning that they're really insightful. I already knew that about them, but this has provided a new point of conversation of how do we stretch those ideals, and hearing them talk about that. And they're really good teammates. They really love one another. They've been worried about each other. And they've been adamant and committed to supporting, showing their support. I think, is there anything else you've learned?
Well, we can move on to our next question.
Okay.
I don't have much else for that.
What are we concerned about in terms of our future?
It's completely unknown.
Right.
And we're getting more and more kind of getting stuff moving, but it still is a little bit unknown. That's a big, obvious concern. And as the coach, you want the guys to come in ready, at least in any form, meaning and whenever that starts, whenever our date is like, we're going to come back and we're going to start doing this stuff, you kind of would like them to be in somewhat fit shape, but it's hard now. That's as a coach, I'd really would like to see the fitness not drop off too fast. I don't know about you.
Yeah. So a little update on that same thing, Gabe. I felt like the number one thing that's hard about the short term and shorter term is everything is still so up in the air. We are still being told to proceed with the hopeful intention of gathering for a normal academic calendar. And for us, that would mean that we would start our training camp September 14th, which is a little over a week before classes are slated to start. It's hard to trust that, but we're still trying to provide some direction along that timeline. We're also encouraging anybody who feels safe and ready to come back to Corvallis to consider to try to do that by mid-August, so that if we can start opening up the boathouse for small boat work or anything like that, at least they're physically in town, but that has to be a really personal decision. So I agree. The short term is like, how do we provide leadership with some targets under the assumption that could change at any moment? Yeah. What else are you concerned about?
Well, it's some people might choose that this is just not the time to come back, and that's a shame. You wouldn't want anybody to have that, but I completely would get it. And because if you're not comfortable to travel, we got like a lot of guys from all over the country, and you got international people, which that is a whole nother conundrum of is that going to be open?
Right. Yeah, that's when my next one I'm concerned about is how are we going to be able to get our international students back and what's safe for them and how they feel comfortable about that. We have some in New Zealand and Ireland and Germany. It includes our incoming recruited class. So visa wise, it's a little bit easier that you already have a visa if you're a returning athlete, but if you're an incoming, they're still having some trouble setting up those their appointments with the consulates and the embassies, because some of those are closed. So, and also like just how to support generally that transition for those incoming class, because we used to have the bridge program. Well, we still do. Gabe and I both have athletes, our incomers, go through this extended, used to be on campus orientation for student athletes, and now that's all gone virtual. And so I think,
and this was the first year. So we have like, I think 18 or 19 guys coming in, and every single one of them was going to be into the bridge program.
right.
The positive of that, so yes, they moved it all online. It's all virtual. We still have 13 of them doing it, which is great. It just is a different experience.
Right. Yeah, I think just like the rules are changing too about the permission that we can have, about the contact we can have, and that's how do we continue to provide adequate support throughout the summer for our athletes and our incomers, because the NCAA rules, the conference rules are regulating that, and they're in constant flux. So that's another thing that's kind of stressful about the short term. And it also pertains to recruiting. The rules on recruiting are all, it's basically to a standstill right now.
So the bridge program is,
Yep.
it's a 4-week, pretty intense introduction to how college works, and it's just open to freshman, incoming student athletes, and they take 2 courses, each 3 credits. I think they take a psychology course and a learning skills course, so they get 6 credits, and they are with different teams. Our session is kind of the spring sports, which is really neat. So not only is it men's and women's paired together, women's rowing, it's, I think, baseball, softball, gymnastics, wrestling, and I think those are the ones that are all together. So you get to meet all these people, and you kind of almost ease into the campus life, and you get 4 weeks under your belt rather than starting on day 1 and it's 100 miles an hour instantly. So you get to know where the buildings are, know how the schedule is going to work. You get to start, they get cleared to practice, so we do some workouts. So you get a real good foundation for doing things, and everybody that we've seen do it is very successful afterwards.
Right. And so the fact that it's virtual is just going to force us to get more creative on how do we replicate some of that without having that in-person contact.
Right.
One of the things that I think is providing some long-term concern for us is, we'll be very honest, the financial insecurity. We know cuts are coming, and we are starting to work on adjusting our budgets. And I am personally really worried about how that might affect the experience as a whole. We do a pretty good job. I think we both do a great job of being really frugal and thoughtful and intentional in the way that we travel and where we go to race, and how we recruit. We just don't know how drastic those cuts are going to be. I can say I feel fortunate, we feel reassured by our university that our programs are secure in their existence. It's just, what's the quality of that experience going to be given our operational budget? We just got a question about the size of the men's and women's budget per year. Do you feel comfortable sharing, Gabe? I actually don't know your numbers.
Well, I'll say it's enough, but it's always like, whatever it is, we go over it, and to kind of cut it back a percentage, which is going to happen, whether it's 5%, 10%, is it's going to be tougher, and you have to make some kind of decisions on how many boats are going to take, what races are we going to do. Fall racing is still in flux. I'm not really sure about that, meaning I don't know what's going to happen with fall racing. They might do, if we are, say, able to get in team boats, they could do like a regional kind of racing. I'm not sure about all the races.
There was a question that just came in about getting into smaller boats sooner than later. We're definitely looking at plans for that.
Yeah.
But there are 4 waves that the university is considering of returning athletes, and we're wave 3 out of 4. So there's a possibility that we could start getting some boats out in the water for voluntary conditioning, potentially maybe in July, but we're trying to manage expectations on that with the team. I think back to your point though about the budget, Gabe, yeah, we go over every year too. And we have been leaning very heavily on the generosity of our donors. And, you know, and we didn't spend this year's spring budget, the operating budget, but that money, that money's gone, right? So
Yeah,
it's going to be a new budget for next year. Our foundation funds are still secure right now. We have not spent any of those foundation funds. I just want to take a moment and say thank you for that support in the past. Gabe, I think we should probably just move on to what we're looking forward to in the future. And, you know, how do we plan to not only re-energize and reunite our team, but also our alum and our supporters?
Well, there is a sunny side on the end of this. There has to be. And, you know, this isn't going to be forever. And it is one day at a time, meaning do what we need to do today to get to tomorrow, and we'll get there. Whether we are able to race in the fall or not, it just is. And then I would hope and predict that we're going to be all in, ready to go for the spring. And that's obviously what our main season is. And if that kind of has to sacrifice maybe a race or 2 in the fall, so we can still get into the spring, that's a good thing.
Right.
You were kind of talking about maybe the orange and black regatta.
I know. Well, I was thinking, like, I think just to, you know, say, you know, in reference to your first point, like, we're committed to being as creative as possible to get these athletes back on the water and training, you know, and we're going to keep working that puzzle. There was a question, you know, in terms of what I look forward to. Yes, spring eligibility has been granted. And for us, that means we have 1 senior that's coming back who would have graduated this year, who will be returning next year. And it's still up in the air. The NCAA granted another year to all of the spring student athletes, meaning, like, if you're a freshman this year, you could have a 5th year, right? Now, institutionally, in terms of eligibility, institutionally, the university will have to figure out whether or not, you know, what the financial implications of that. And I think that'll be different university by university. So the eligibility is there for all spring athletes. So I'm looking forward to, that's one of the things I'm looking forward to. I think, you know, the older you are in the sport, the better you do, right? Like, you know, in terms, if we take a hit on recruiting, shoot, you know, I'm happy to have a 5th year rower, 6th year rower, you know, or 11th year rower on the team. I think that could be a huge, really cool, fun advantage, you know? So I'm looking forward to that. What else are you looking forward to, Gabe?
Well, with us, it's you know, since they're basically paying their way, they're not, or none of our seniors are going to come back. Not that I know, they may change their mind later, but the good positive is that I think some of the underclassmen actually are saying, like, oh, that means I could go next year. That would, just like you said, you're 1 year bigger and stronger. Like, I'll take it. And some guys on here I know that I've seen the names, like they've maybe taken a co-op year or something like that and then came back, and you're better. But looking forward to is honestly, I want to be together.
Yeah.
It's just, even if it is a different together, like if we are able to erg in the barn 6 feet apart, I'll take it, as it is now, like, because right now, honestly, it's summer. Today would be the finals. It's summer vacation, like almost normal times as we wouldn't see them at all. But say September 15th happens, I really would like to be together in some form, whether it is like we can take out a few singles and everybody else has the erg. That's going to be tricky, but I would accept that. I would really say, like, that we're doing this as a team in the same place at the same time. I'm looking forward to that. I'm also looking forward to the attitudes.
Right.
Everybody realized how much they lost when it was taken away. And
New
I
mindset.
hope that they're reminded of that when it's pouring rain, 6 a.m. November. Remember when you couldn't do this and you really, really wanted to do it? These are easy moments to kind of tap back into. Like, you don't want that, feel like that again.
Right. Yeah, on the togetherness, I totally with you on that. I just want to be on the water with our boats again. I want to coach, that's our job. But I think,
look at Mike's picture. Look at Mike's
I know,
background.
right? Mike's picture is it's a tease. But I also think like we are already thinking about, we want to be together with you guys. You mentioned the orange and black regatta, and what will that look like? And, what are our opportunities to reunite as an alum? I mean, this is our first town hall. Maybe there's an opportunity here to get even more creative. And I think Allison put up a message that there is discussion of a Damn Proud Day in the fall. What are going to be our rallying points as alum, and how do we keep you guys feeling like this is your home, this is your team, and that, I want you to know that we're fighting to make this a great experience for the current team. And we want you to feel emotionally engaged and connected to what's going on here. We know we're going to need your support more than ever. And I can't tell you how much it means. We've gotten, I don't know about you, Gabe, I've gotten emails from alum just saying, supporting us, checking in. It just is it's just landing with such intensity. So I can't thank you guys enough. It all matters. And the team knows you're thinking about them.
Well, you said Damn Proud Day. I was pumped.
I know.
For Damn Proud this year.
Yeah.
I was, because last year everybody crushed it and we were all, as both teams, knocked it out of the park.
Women did a little bit better.
and it was all a token to the alums and like all the people involved in it. And that was kind of a energy that was built up over a lot of years. Everybody asked, like, how did you do that?
Right.
Well, because we had a big base that wants to help and wants to be active. And so then this year I said, well, we did it once. Can we do it twice even better? And we had it all teed up, and then it went away. This is really weird. I didn't even think about this. On the last day, March 12th, I was doing a video for the Damn Proud Day to be like, hey, do this.
Yeah, right.
And that was it. That
Yeah.
was a surreal moment.
All right.
So you want to have, anyway, I don't know, they don't have a date for it, right?
No, we'll keep you guys posted. We love the competitiveness between the squads too. Like nobody else on campus has that. It's so fun. We want you to know our squads are close, and the way you have felt in the past, that rings true. And, we're able to generate energy because of that synergy between you guys. So thank you. We want to shift gears and want you to hear from a current team. So we've invited Alina Hagstrom, who graduated in 2019 and currently training with the U.S. senior national team in Princeton. And she's going to be interviewing Sierra Bishop, who is a sophomore this year on the team. And they're going to just interview each other so you can hear directly from them. Sierra Bishop was also, she's a true walk-on. She learned to row here at Oregon State. And this summer, she was selected for the U23 selection camp that has been run virtually. So Allison, if we can maybe highlight both of them, I'm not sure. And we're going to turn it over to you guys if you're ready.
Yeah, thanks for asking me to talk and interview Sierra. I can't see Sierra right now, but I'll just start. I can hear you, yeah. I'm just going to start with my first question to you. Just in general, how have you been? And how have you been handling the change in school and rowing and just everything else in between?
Yeah, I've been good. Like Gabe said, it was a really intense day when we all found out that we wouldn't have a season anymore. And I think everyone kind of went through a grieving process. Mm-hmm. And it really was wild to experience that. But I think as a team, we've been able to kind of come together around that. For me personally, like our spring term has been remote. So that means that all of our classes that would have been in a classroom are now on Zoom. All of our assignments are online, things like that. And I know for me, like, I really value the classroom interaction with professors and classmates and peers and whatnot, and making those connections. And so that's been tough. And so, like, academically, it's been harder to just maintain that focus that you feel like when you're actually in a place where you're learning with other people learning the same thing. And then rowing wise, I'm so excited to be doing this U23 camp this summer. It's such a huge opportunity. And one of my teammate, Shelby Larkin, is also doing it with me. And so we've been erging in my little garage and been able to do that together. So overall, it's been good. Definitely a weird transition that no one expected, but
Yeah, for sure. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So, I mean, obviously this is a difficult situation. How do you think the team has responded in regards to what happened this year, just with, races being canceled and, not really being able to see anyone?
It's been really, really hard. And I think that everyone expected it to be hard, but then there's challenges that people don't even expect in terms of you having to handle your own stuff, but also being worried about your teammates, so wanting to check in with them. And then you just kind of, because people are in different time zones and continents and things like that, you just kind of, it's a lot harder to feel that connection, especially because we're not together for 20 hours plus a week. I've been lucky. I've been in Corvallis for the most part with my two roommates are on the team and they're here too. So I feel like a little bit part of a community. And like Kate said, we've been talking a lot about team culture in our team meetings and class meetings and things like that, and ways that we've been able to just get creative in the connection. And a couple weeks ago, we started the team Zoom trainings. And so I think that's been a good way for us to just come back to the work. And what's a good thing that's come out of this, which it's minor, but the fact that we're all experiencing the exact same thing. Like, we know that when we're asking someone how they're doing, we can say, like, this is really hard, and understand where we're coming from when we're saying that. So I think that's been a positive thing, even though it's because we're going through something that's so challenging. But
yeah, of course.
Yeah.
And like with training, like since you're still training with Shelby and although it's separate, has there been anything you've learned while being away from the team that you'd like to bring back next year?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing I learned is that being a leader on the team doesn't mean being the most visible or the loudest voice. It just means doing what you need to do, so that when we do get back together, we're prepared. I've been so in awe of some of my teammates who have reached out consistently and made an effort to just do things that I would never even think of, that have stood out. Like, we did a team Netflix party thing, so we all were watching the same movie at the same time, and like, that's just such a unique thing that I feel like it's given people who normally wouldn't necessarily step out in creating something like that the opportunity to do that. And so yeah, I think I'm excited to see how that evolves into what leadership looks like into next year, and how people are able to just connect more.
For sure.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, so I have some questions for you too. And this is something that I've been wondering for a long time, but like, what is the biggest difference training with the senior team? This is such a huge opportunity versus at Oregon State and like collegiate rowing.
Yeah, personally, I think the biggest difference for me has probably been how much of a lifestyle it has sort of become. While I was a senior and sort of asking people about the senior team, I remember asking Carrie Simmons, she was one of the coaches while I was at Oregon State, I remember asking her and she had said it was a lifestyle. And I was like, okay, like, you know, I really didn't understand it. I had more so a general idea. Now I get it. I know I'm only a year in, but there's been a big shift in that category. You know, all the time you have in college for classes or studying is now a time for me to figure out what I need to do in order to be feeling good and ready for the next practice, whether that's, you know, later in the afternoon or the next day, you know, it really doesn't matter. You know, that can be a mental break, making sure that what I'm eating, I'm feeling good. And then, you know, seeing our athletic trainer for rehab or things like that. You know, it's my job now in some ways. And in order to do my job well, I have to be really on top of those things. So yeah, definitely a lifestyle.
That's really awesome.
Yeah.
And like going into senior team, obviously like you had an idea of what this spring would look like. So what did you kind of expect, and then what has it ended up turning out to look like?
Yeah. Originally I was expecting a lot of racing within the team. I was expecting a lot of erg tests and just a lot of competition in many forms, you know, whether it's leading up to World Cup or World Champs, or, you know, this summer is supposed to be the Olympics. With the postponement and, you know, everything going on, it's turned out to be a lot more individual training and more so decreasing the racing volume that we were doing originally and bringing back in training that will help us maintain our fitness. Thankfully, in February, we were able to compete in the NSRs, the National Selection Regatta, which was inter-squad racing, but that's been pretty much it. Some of us have been able to get into some of us have been able to get into singles, but we have to be really careful that we're not violating guidelines or rules. It's definitely been a day-to-day thing for that. And we're supposed to be doing inter-squad racing in August or September. That can always change. We never know. And it's a lot of playing it by ear. But if everything else fails, I still have an erg. So I'll still be getting fitness in some way or another.
Yeah. So as you said, like with the Olympics being postponed to next year, and not being able to compete in like the national trials, what kind of opportunities or challenges do you think are different now than if everything were normal? And do you think that there's like a better opportunity for you personally, or like how is that kind of opportunity different?
Yeah, it's definitely a mixed bag when it comes to that. I'll start with the challenges. One of them has been training alone. So I understand, you know, that whole issue with training alone, not seeing everyone. I don't know about you, but it gave me sort of winter training vibes, since there was so much excitement. You know, you had fall racing, and then it was sort of like, okay, now we have to hunker down. And, you know, there's so much energy about racing, and not being able to go back and not being able to see anyone and doing all of my training and hard pieces by myself on the erg was just, you know, it was not a good time. Still got it done, but yeah, the isolation. And then also I'm from Seattle, so being far away from home during this whole thing, that has also been super difficult. I never really had struggled with that at Oregon State. But now that the restrictions have eased up a little bit, I'm able to see a few teammates from a distance. And that has been a really tremendous help to be able to see them and, you know, relate to them on that level. When it comes to opportunities, to be completely honest, this postponement is an advantage for me personally. It gives me a lot more time to insert myself into the selection pool. I have a year now to challenge myself to be faster, you know, stronger, more technically efficient on the water. I do have a hard time like saying that though, because I know a lot of women on the team have been working for, you know, years for this. And so to see this postponement affect them has been difficult. With that being said though, it has given me an opportunity to see how they respond to this new unfamiliar challenge and say, okay, cool, like let's do it. Like let's kick it back into gear. Let's, you know, keep doing what we're doing. and, you know, for them to continue to work their hearts out. And that has given me a lot of motivation to do the same. So, yeah.
I got a question in the chat that asked, what are the dates and locations of your camp this summer, and are there any planned competition? So I'm working out in my, like I said, my garage on my erg with Shelby, and it was supposed to be at the University of Iowa, and the World Championships was supposed to be in Slovenia. So we would have worked all summer and done selections and all those sorts of things to get the boats together to do that. And yesterday we actually did a 6K test, which was something I didn't expect to do at this point in the spring, obviously. But as of right now, the coaches really want to get us all together at some point, even for a couple of days before the end of, hopefully this summer, but at least by the end of the year, to just get together, because the important part about rowing is being able to move a boat. But I guess my last question is, like, where are you training right now? Like you said, you're not in Seattle, so where are you?
Yeah, I'm in Princeton. So yeah, I'm pretty much just hunkered down until then, until, you know, we can get the team back together, since it's where we train out of. We have access to obviously not Carnegie right now, which is where Princeton University trains out of, but Mercer has had some guidelines that we can follow, as long as you don't enter the boathouse and stuff like that. But that's just been very, like I said, up in the air and day by day. I also received a question: what's the best way for alum to follow my journey? I do have social media, I just don't post a lot. I mean, I guess the best way I can be better about emailing Kate or Allison or someone, you know, saying, hey, this is what I'm doing. But I do appreciate the reaching out and being able to keep in touch with, you know, all the other alumni I'm a part of, and even, you know, everyone's still at Oregon State. So.
Hey, thank you guys. That was awesome. Miss you, Alina.
Yeah, I miss you guys too.
It's different seeing your face than just texting with you. I really, it's so nice. So thank you, Sierra and Alina. I really appreciate it. It's awesome to hear you guys talk, and you have this both Oregon State and also long-term goal, you know, in common. And I hope the two of you can stay connected, you know, for the long haul. So
yeah, for sure.
All right, Gabe, I'll turn it over to you and your team, your guys. You got Chris Callahan, I think,
yeah,
right?
So we brought in here Chris Callahan, class of 2004. Chris, what was your major? I don't know this. You on? Where you at?
Yeah, still here.
What was your nice beard? But what was your major?
General business, and with a minor in construction management.
Oh, cool. So you took that and then moved to Princeton and trained with the national team for a bit. And Chris and I actually trained together, and we were in the Pan Am 8 together in Rio in 2007. Mm-hmm. And then you went to San Diego and led the San Diego juniors for a bit. And now you're the head guy in charge of the San Diego Rowing Club, correct?
Yes, I spent 4 years running the junior program and helping the club. And then the last 6 years, I've just been overall running the club and all programs.
How's the weather in San Diego right now?
70s, 80s,
yeah,
pretty sunny.
Tough life, man. Living the dream. You're from Portland, correct?
Correct.
Well, so we also brought another Portland native, Zach Niedermeyer, who is the captain this year, one of the captains, co-captains. He also won our Impact Award, which the coaches nominate, and it's the guy that makes the biggest impact of the team on that year, which can be a range of different things, not just in boat speed, but in like all around. So I know you guys have never formally probably met, and this is your first kind of meeting up right now. And so Chris, I think you had a few questions for Zach, and he's going to relay some onto you too.
Excellent. So hi, Zach. So being down in San Diego, we have San Diego State, UCSD, and USD all within a couple hundred meters of each other. So it was interesting watching everything transpire down here So, I mean, I guess like I wanted to ask the question of like, how was your last day of practice? And are you still in town, or like how soon did you have to get out of town?
Yeah, so I'm still in Corvallis right now, but the last day of practice, like Gabe was talking, was pretty awful. The last week itself there was some stuff going on. We were going up to breakfast tables, and everyone looked just kind of like upset and just kind of like everyone seemed awkward and just like uncomfortable. And we're like, well, what's going on? We hear all this news about Corona and everything, and we're like, oh, like, you know, that might affect us, but that, you know, probably not. Like, it's fine. We'll get over it. And then like during the last week, I remember we were doing an erg. We did a 3x20, and one of the coxswains came up to me and he's like, pull as hard as you can because this might be the last erg you do this year. And I was like, that's ridiculous. Like, there's no way I'm not gonna not erg. And I'm like, you're just trying to make me go harder. Like, yeah, sure, whatever. But he was right. And then the last day, we all knew something really bad was going to happen when they canceled the NCAA March Madness. That was when we're like, okay, like this is going to affect us. And so the last day we had our class day regatta, got into our assigned classes, and we went down to the pond, which is a 1,000-meter course we have like close by to OSU. And we did some pieces against class v class, and the seniors won, which was, you know, nice for them. And at the end of practice, Gabe called us all together, and he's like, yeah, so this is it. This is the last thing that's going to happen. Like, there's no more practice. Everything else is optional on your own. Like, we can't meet up. We can't like see. And it was really heartbreaking. Like, at first I was in just disbelief. I was like, there's no way that this is it. Like, they gotta be, they're wrong, you know, like this is not that big of a deal. Like, it can't be, this is it, you know? And it just reminded me back to freshman year when I was in IRAs, and the last final of the IRAs, the men's 8 was in the C final, and they were just like, they were so ready to go. They were about to, they worked all year long, and they were about to kill it. They were going to win the whole final. They were going to win the C final for sure. And everyone was so pumped and so ready to go and so ready to race. And it just became too windy and white capping, and just like they canceled all the races, and they're just like, yeah, we're just going to place you on. And so it was like their whole season got cut off very close to the end. And it felt the exact same, but like 10 times worse. It was just no closure, no like, oh, I worked so hard. I've done year after year after year, and I've worked my way up here, and I just like, I'm so close to my end goal, and I'm so ready to prove everything that I've done, and just to have it taken away and completely out of your control. Like, there's nothing you can do about it. You can't fight back. You can't do anything. It's just awful. It was really, really terrible. Like, if like I was talking to some of the dudes later, and they said like the next week, they said it felt like someone super important in their life died, and they just like didn't know what to do. And it was just like depressing. It's like, all right, well, eventually we have to get over it.
Yeah, I mean, there's not too many gut punches like that you can really come up with in a life that you're just like, oh, that doesn't exist anymore. So it's definitely a struggle that we've all had to deal with. And I guess like personally, how was your season shaping up? Like, were you on track to PR on all your tests, and were you looking to, you know, be in that top boat for IRAs or stuff like that?
Yeah, so this season was probably the best season I've ever had in my entire life. I started off in the summer after my sophomore year. I was like, I want to be in the varsity 8 next year, like absolutely. So I just kept working out all summer. I didn't let anyone, like, I didn't take a break or anything. And I came in fall term in pretty good shape, and I was really feeling good. And I kept trying to push myself, and I kept trying to make that top boat. I didn't make the Charles 4, which I wasn't really expecting to, but I was like, kind of a setback. For the fall term, I made the varsity boat, but that doesn't indicate you're going to make the varsity boat for spring. And so I would show up early and do extra work. I'd stay late, do extra work. I kept pushing myself because I really, really, like, my main goal was to make that varsity 8. And so the coaches and other athletes realized that I was really, like, you know, I was improving consistently. And so when we had time to vote for captains, they gave me the captainship, which was amazing. Like, I was like, oh geez, like I wasn't expecting that at all. I was like, oh, give it to a senior who's been here for 4 years and, you know, knows what's what, like, but they, like, other people were like, no, like, we recognize how hard you're working and how much you're like doing for us, and you're a good leader. So they gave me the captainship, which was one of my goals to have as an OSU athlete. And so I was like, that's amazing. And so then the rest of the year I kept training and I kept hitting PRs. I kept doing better and better on my workouts. And like, I had a couple setbacks every once in a while, but I kept getting there. And then the last race that we did was in Vegas. It was February 28th. So about a week and a half before the whole Corona thing. And I remember right before the race, we had a 2K, and I just didn't, I didn't do bad. I just didn't hit my PR, and I knew I could have done much better. And so I was really upset about it. And I was like, oh man, I'm all nervous. I don't think I'm going to make the boat. I don't think I'm going to do well. And so all the way up until the race at Vegas, I was just in a nervous frenzy of just like, I got to go harder. I got to, like, all this hard work, everything that I worked for, all my hard work is not going to pay off. And like, I need it. Like, I've been working so hard for it to pay off. So I kept working, and eventually we had one last seat race before the Vegas race, and I ended up beating the guy that I seat raced against. I got into the boat. The guy shaved my head, which was an awesome experience. Yeah, it was super fun. We raced in Vegas, and I mean, we did like decent. It wasn't terrible. It wasn't amazing. It wasn't the best race I've ever had, for sure. They smushed all the races into one day, which was kind of tough, but, you know, definitely something that I'll remember. And I just remember I was like, okay, like, I did it. I made my goal. I got into the varsity. Now it's time for me to set my next goals. And my next goal was to be in the varsity for IRAs. And I was like, all right, to get into that, I need to solidify my spot. I need to get into the varsity for the next race. And then all this stuff and working down the line. And I was just like, all right, here's the next goal. We have a 2K the next week. And I'm like, I'm more like relaxed, and it's not all about that. And so I PR'd on the 2K, and I was just stoked about that. I like hit my goal that I wanted originally, but I didn't have the stress of like, I need to make this goal in order to get into varsity. And so I was just so excited for the next race. I was so ready to like put my name in the seat and say, this is my spot. There's no one who's going to take it. I'm going to be in the varsity for the IRAs. Like, I want to be the guy who makes the biggest difference out of the team. And so all the way leading up to that, and then just having it all cut off, it was like, that was awful.
Yeah, I mean, that's sometimes how the season goes, but no, unlike this one, it's a little different. But good. I mean, it's really good to hit the peak and be going, you know, the right direction come, you know, springtime and spring break. So I guess since practices have been canceled and school's been, you know, redirected, have you been able to continue training? Have you been doing more cross training than erging, hopefully? But how has the training been going through, you know, now and then like also into, say, summertime?
Yeah. So originally, I mean, I was coming off the high of just killing it. I was so ready for the season that when they said it's over, there's no more, I was just in disbelief. So I was like, that's ridiculous. I'm going to keep going. So I kept training the exact same way I would have. And I was just doing it by myself and doing the ergs and just doing everything that we normally would have done. But after about a week or two of that, it got kind of tiring and pretty mentally exhausting, especially when there was no one there to push me to go faster. And then I decided, you know, like, maybe it's time, like, usually after IRAs, I take a quick, like, 1 to 2 week break. And I was like, I usually take a break and then I like reevaluate what I want to do. And then I just try to maintain fitness, do little workouts here and there, do whatever. And so after that, I was like, all right, I need to take a break. Like, I need to do something. I went to the beach with my family, which was really nice. So I got to spend the first spring break with my family in a long time, because usually we stay and train. So went to the beach, had a good time. We actually got kicked out of the house halfway through the rental because they didn't want anyone down there anymore. And so I spent that time with them. I came home and I decided I was gonna, you know, I'm gonna still work out, I'm gonna still do other stuff, but I got to figure out a nice way to like make it balance. I got to balance my life out more. And so I spent a lot more time balancing. I found out that one of my friends has a whole weight system in his garage. And so I've been going over there and doing weights and lifting there and trying to like do a little bit of cross training. One of the freshmen has decided to do a challenge per week, and he makes up a challenge, and the challenge is, let's say, like an hour erg, as many meters as you can, and then right after it, you have to do like a 30-minute like circuit of sit-up, plank, and whatever. And it's just however many times you can do it in that time frame. And so everyone that wants to can do it, and there's people that don't want to do it. And so we keep track of who's done what, and whoever wins gets a point. And, you know, it's just fun little activities like that keep people motivated and keep them training.
I mean, it's good. It's good to keep training. The break is definitely required between, you know, the big training up, and then you got to come down a little bit, then get back into that steady state, you know, endurance for the next few months until you figure out what's going on. I guess my last question is, like, as a student athlete, I mean, we've been all talking about the athlete side, but as a student, how has your spring and looking forward to the summer, how's that going to be used to further, you know, education, potential for work and job once you graduate, or even volunteer?
Yeah, so with all this time opened up, I definitely have been able to start looking at other things. And my plan for after I graduate is to, my dad owns an insurance agency, or he owns his own insurance company. And my plan is to eventually work for him and take it over when he wants to retire in the far, far future. And so right now what I'm looking at is I've been looking at insurance internships, and I actually had an interview with a regional director the other day, and I felt pretty confident about it. So it's been nice to focus on, you know, stuff that will improve my life farther down the line, not just strictly focusing on like, oh, am I going to make this boat? How am I going to do on this erg? How am I going to do now in the moment? It's like, okay, I can start to like plan on my steps after rowing ends, or let's say it never ends, but plan on my steps on what will actually make me a better person at the end of the day.
Yeah, I mean, that's an important thing. Like with my training, I trained through the national team, and when I finally retired, I was coaching high school, and I decided to move back west because I'm not an East Coast guy, and was able to get a job in San Diego. And like at 28, I finally got to have a real job, and it was really interesting. It's like, oh man, should have thought about this stuff, you know, while I was training versus, you know, retiring from the sport and going like, oh, I should probably find a job now.
Yeah, the internship, I find out sometime next week. Whoever sent that in, Mark. Yeah, I find out next week. But yeah, no, I agree. It's important to like, it's one of the things that I learned in high school was it's important to be an extremely well-rounded athlete. Like you can't just focus on rowing, and that can't just be your life. And the thing is, because if that's taken away, like right now, what do you have? And so that was something that I learned early on. And so my coach, he even said, do not choose a college off of rowing, because if you don't do well and if you fail and let's say you can't do it anymore, let's say you get injured, let's say whatever the worst case happens, you need to be able to like live with your decisions. So I thought that was really interesting. So that's what I like keep into my mind. Obviously, rowing is one of the most important things in my life, but it's good to have other things surrounding you.
Yeah, being well-rounded, you know, in life is always good. You'll be in a good position anywhere you go. Cool. Well, those are my questions.
So you're the coach at UCSD?
I am the director of operations for the San Diego Rowing Club. So
Okay.
it encompasses the facility of San Diego Rowing Club, USD, and UCSD. So I manage the facility, schedule all the programs, make sure all the boats are maintained and rotated out on a timely basis so that we have nice and shiny red boats, as our colors are all red. Not orange, but it's close.
That's awesome. So do you you help run the Crew Classic and the Portland or the San Diego Fall Classic and all that?
So I run the Fall Classic. That is owned and operated by the San Diego Rowing Club. The Crew Classic is a separate organization, separate nonprofit, but I actually do work for them, making sure that their financial books are maintained properly. I had a lot of work with the rowing club to turn them around financially. So they were like, "Hey, why don't you come over here and do this for us too?" So I do have my hand a little bit in the Crew Classic, and the Fall Classic would be great if the coaches would bring their athletes down. But it is we actually have like more entries than the Crew Classic, but we are run in a 4 or 5 hour time frame, so it's a little bit different in that regard. Head race style 5K.
Yeah, that was one of my favorite fall races in fall. I rode at Rose City Rowing Club in Portland.
Yeah.
And that was it was a nice way to cap off the fall, go down to San Diego, somewhere nice and sunny, right before you get into winter and everything goes to gray.
I mean, it's a pretty nice race that we've had a lot of people come in from Seattle, Vancouver, British Columbia, come down to the race, and you're just like, "Hey man, if you guys want to race, we're all for it." And the junior, Rose City came down with a bunch of other Seattle programs, and it's just like we're more than happy to race, Southern California versus the Northwest, because it is really good junior racing.
Right. So what is the status of the Fall Classic next?
The city doesn't really want to talk about anything for permits right now. So I had approval for my permit, but they're not going to hand anything out anytime soon. So we are, I think Tom was asking, Tom Woodman, we are on the water for singles and doubles. Doubles are from the same household. So our general membership is allowed to row. The high school kids are not yet able to. We are shut down as a business, so I can't have any camps. I can't do any coaching, but members can show up and take boats out, wash the boats, put them away, and I'm just kind of in the office doing stuff so that people can have access to things. But the bathrooms are closed, or the bathrooms are accessible, but the locker room, showers, weight room, we've given our 40 ergs out to the juniors and the masters to use. And then people from around the county can go to these different places to use them, so they don't have to drive down to the boathouse because we're not allowed to. So we are operating at the best we can and trying to keep people, active.
All right.
That's pretty much it I got.
Okay. We wanted to, provide an opportunity to have a little bit of breakout and maybe to smaller groups, but I think we did get a few questions. Allison just sent me a message saying there are 3 questions that haven't been answered that came through via email. Is there any threat or concern about a reduction in status to club? No, not at all. I think our administration has been very good about being transparent, and he has been consistent. Our athletic director has been consistent in saying he's not cutting any sports. And they fully understand how intertwined our programs are. So at this point, I think we've been told that Oregon State has always done really well with minimal resources. And we have, the minimum amount of sports required to be sponsored at the Division I level. So there really isn't any room to change that. So the question to that is, our programs are secure at the varsity status. Is there NCAA athlete eligibility? We addressed that a little bit earlier. Yes, so another year has been granted to all spring athletes, but that doesn't mean that institutionally you know, for the women and men, it's a little bit different in terms of whether there will be a scholarship and how does that interplay into whether or not OSU will be in support of giving that to everybody. They have affirmed for the seniors. They're in support of the seniors coming back, but in the future, the eligibility is there. Oregon State reserves, because it's not, even if you're not on scholarship, there are costs associated with having an athlete on a roster, you know, whether it's academic services, performance table, athletic training, there's a cost to supporting the student athletes. So it's not just a scholarship question. There's a greater financial consideration there. Another question, single use and coaching. We're not, you know, the same rules apply. We're kind of used to this phase of the year where it has to be voluntary. No coaching is allowed right now. Hasn't been allowed since the season was shut down. We've not been able to get any kind of data, no ERG scores, nothing. And that remains true until we're allowed to reconvene in the fall. You know, I know that Tom, you had the idea of putting out the call, Tom Woodman, on anybody being willing to share a single. And at the time, I thought that was like, wow, are we going to really be there? And like now I'm thinking, hey, if you do have a single that you're willing to share, that could actually help get our athletes on the water. And it actually is an appealing thing. You know, they're very interested in hearing creative plans on risk mitigation and boating by household, whether that's a pair or a four or a single. So we're looking at those ideas. If there are alum out there that want to help, whether share a boat for a single and you want to offer that support, or a pair, let us know. We don't have any firm plans yet. I think the earliest that would be July, and that we as coaches would be on the water as safety launches for liability reasons. No coaching would be allowed, but that's the norm for us in the summer. So
the number of we have like what, Kay, like 7 total singles in the entire boathouse.
I think we've got
maybe
4
6
pairs.
or 7.
Yeah, 4 pairs.
John says no. We have less than that.
Yeah, John, what do we got?
Like, I don't know, say 6 singles. It's just, which, okay, we can use those. It would just be logistically tricky to get 40 people cycled through all these
I would
singles.
love to have that challenge.
It would be cool if we could get 40 singles out there, but
anybody? Okay.
Honestly, I could see a scenario. We just could be creative of something like that, at least for a short term, you know, to try to get everybody training and rowing. It could be like that, but hopefully at least maybe they can get it to rowing in 4s or something like that.
Okay. Are there any other questions that you guys have been listening for a long time? Anything else we could address or shed some light on? I think, Allison, I'm going to turn it over to you here.
Yeah, we're going to go ahead and just send everybody out into breakout rooms based on graduation year. And then we have a parent kind of supporters group as well. So that will start to happen. So
and this is like an informal, like,
yeah, just a chat,
like,
hang out with people you might recognize, see old faces, hang out as long as you want. And yeah, that's what I got.
So that concludes our portion. Thank you guys so much. We want to get this going, and hopefully you can enjoy some time chatting together and we can keep building our connection. You're amazing support for our programs, and you know, this is your team and your family for forever. So
Greg, Everett, you asked like the use of Strava or any other means where alumni can help with training. I'm a huge Strava guy. I am all in on that. Like, I use that almost a lot for my own training. To use it with the athletes is another option, meaning like I've encouraged them to sign up and use the go biking, go running, and you could track the stuff. And it's another kind of tool to kind of motivate people. Us as coaches, we actually can't even like them. We can't even like give kudos on that. That's even termed coaching if we give a thumbs up, which is kind of lame. But I don't know if that answers your question, Greg, about the use of that.
We can find out also from compliance if there's a way that the alumni can authentically, without our involvement, connect with the current team through Strava. But there are the red flags on compliance come up for me, but I think unless Mike, you have a ready answer on that. Nope. Okay, we'll work on that. We'll share that. Okay. All right, Allison, take it away.
Go Beavs.
Go
All right.
Beavs.